Well, after having completed the challenge and talking to several other Pythoneers, I decided to go ahead and create another group up on Python 3 Training Nexus to support our total Pythoneering activities. And you'll notice here that I have PyTrek 00010000 because I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm sure that I could keep on enhancing this program as software development really isn't ever completed. It's only abandoned. And of course, that's one of the reasons why we still have to make sure that we're doing testing and changing those tests and maintaining those tests. Certainly when we're using the Ready, Set, Code or Agile process. So that's to make sure things don't continue to rot, but continue to get better as we move from the past to the future. While there are several ways to get the code, a lot of people talk about using clone and git clone, but for our purposes, let's go ahead and simply download the zip file. And once the file has been downloaded, of course, all we have to do is unzip it or drag and drop it from that archive, as we see here on Microsoft Windows, onto our desktop. And one of the reasons why I wanted to put this solution together is because unlike the PyTrek 2020 Nexus, which is designed and has been distributed on the Python package index or the PyPy store, so as to be installed by the pip or the pip3 package manager under modern Python, the project is simply designed now to run on our desktop. And by opening that silly named PyTrek 000100 file, you'll see that we have a folder named for the package, in this case, PyTrek, that as it would be installed if we use pip. And by opening the PyTrek 1 module, wonderfully, you'll see that we have the present version of PyTrek shown on our screen. In order to accomplish that a miracle, we had to do another hack, which PyPy would have done for us, would have put PyTrek folder on the Python path. But since we didn't use PyPy, of course, we had to do that ourselves, simply as we see here by on line 3, importing the sys module and then putting our parent directory or ... at the end. Because our Python program will be running inside of that package, you see the implication. Python will now dutifully search the path, even though it hasn't been installed. And that path will now include our parent directory, of course, into which we'll see our PyTrek folder and the dunder init.py. Lots of things going on. But if you're familiar with it, it won't be a problem. But if you're not familiar with it, feel free to take my Python 2000 level training or Python Beyond the Basics, available once again presently on Udemy, as well as other educational content providers. Once Python knows where it's at, to use the 60s phrase, of course, all we have to do now is run things as usual. As we mentioned in the previous video, all we have to do is run that main loop. And we'll, of course, go to the main loop definition, which will create an instance of the game, and then call the run method on that game. Of course, we can always get an exception, in which case we're going to not do anything more than print off the stack trace. But looking at the run, of course, we now can get more spelunking in the ready mode to help us get ready to write some code to explore the ready mode. So let's take a moment and run into a software development environment, which will allow us to do some breakpointing and debugging. Setting our breakpoint on line 142, you notice that we have the ability to either step over, step into, step out of, or go ahead and restart our operation or stop altogether. And we can use any of these at any point in time. To tell you the truth, it wasn't too long ago when we couldn't. So, did you know that we had a self.isTesting flag to let us know if we're testing or playing? Debugging some options? Yeah, of course. Agile says we should be in testing mode. And the debugger allows us to more effectively go through all of our class creations and initialization procedures, layer by layer. Here we're down to layer 3, I think, in our sparse map, where we're going to say we're initialized. In other words, we can use things in our sparse map. And then we're going to use a list comprehension to create an empty map you don't know anything about list comprehensions, go ahead and take my training for Python Beyond the Basics, and we'll skip over that. We shouldn't want to go looking through that before we go back. In this case, we're going to put our default sector to be -1. The user hasn't navigated anywhere. Our X and Y positions, same thing. Stars, no. Klingons, no. Starbase, no. But now we're going to go ahead and get our last nav, and we can step into the desk. So you can see what's going on here with a debugger. It really does help a lot to create our objects and get an idea of what we need to know before we get ready to talk about the features we can add at all. And whether you're doing agile, waterfall, this is the kind of knowledge everybody's going to want to know. But here's our enterprise, which is part of the game. There's only one of those. So let's step into it and see what we have to do to create an enterprise. And if we decide to have many, we can, of course. We're going to set up all the conditions we have, from a green status code, the fact that we're not docked, you have no energy, no photon damage, no torpedoes, etc. But now we're going to set ourselves up as if we're docked by allowing us to put in or fix any torpedoes or damages that we have going on for us. Not a big deal. And now we're docked. This is a really wonderful way to see how using nouns and verbs, dock, launch, start, stop, and these is capabilities of being docked or enabled and whatnot are very easy to understand, and that's the way we write clean code, keeping with the nouns and verbs. For example, enterprise.dock, enterprise.launch, which would make very good diagrams, very good architecture. And of course, these operations can apply to more than just the enterprise. If we have more than one ally, or even a foe docking at our star base. And of course, finally, the last thing, we are not destroyed. In other words, the entire game is not destroyed. And now we can run our game. Beautiful, fun stuff. And that's why a debugger is so helpful. Whenever we begin looking at what we're creating and debugging, in this case, StarTrek 2020, as it sits on the package as a major release of our program.